started? Yes? We're good? Okay. Good morning again.
Good morning.
And welcome to One Heart, One Mind Center for Spiritual Living. I am the Reverend Michelle Ingalls. And on this beautiful February Sunday morning, we are talking about the pleasure of being alive. And all month we've been talking about all the colors of love and all that entails. And today we're talking specifically about the body, about what it's like to be walking around in these human bodysuits, about living in form and having interactions with one another. So that's what we're talking about today. Now maybe, like me, when you first walked into a Center for Spiritual Living, or maybe back then when you walked in, it was still a Church of Religious Scientists, maybe you were looking for something, but you weren't really even sure what it was you were looking for. Maybe, like me, when you walked into a Center for Spiritual Living, you were pleasantly surprised with a fresh new approach to spirituality and life in general. Maybe, if you're anything like me, when you walked into a Center for Spiritual Living, you were filled, you were inspired with a sense of faith that life could be better than your previous experiences, if you're anything like me. In 1990, I was going through my second divorce. I was at a really low point in my life. And a friend of mine, Jeannie was her name, invited me to go to a church that she had been attending. Well, I was hesitant. It was church. I hadn't had a great experience with church. But I was just curious enough, and frankly just desperate enough, to go with her. So I found myself sitting in a Center for Spiritual Living. Actually, back then it was still the Church of Religious Science in Santa Rosa, California. And at that time, Mary Shelton was the minister there. 1990. Wow. And I was blown away right out of the gate. She was talking about a God that I had never met. She was talking about a spirituality that I had never heard about. She was talking about not telling us what to think, but how to think. This was a completely new approach for me. I was used to a God who told me what I was supposed to do. So, that was it for me, really. I mean, it kind of was one of those things that had me at hello. It was just... And my friend, Jeannie, when we came out of the service, I was just, kind of still rolling on that high of what I had just heard. And they had a bookstore out in their lobby. They had tables full of books. And she bought me a book. I still have it, even though my dog ate a little bit of it. But I still have it. And I remember I got home and I started to pour through this book. It's a little book called This Thing Called Life by Dr. Ernest Holmes, who is the founder of the Science of Mind philosophy. And, I'm glad that I had that page stuck in there. Anyway. On page 29, I read this. Life is not pleased by our being unhappy. Wow, really? Because, quite frankly, the God that I had learned about seemed to make life as difficult as possible for me. So this was a big surprise. God is not honored by our being sad. Really? Because the God that I had learned about didn't have much of a sense of humor, and I didn't really think it cared whether I was sad or happy. Spirit is not stimulated by our entreaty. Really? You mean nothing that I do changes God? The divine is not conditioned by our sense of limitation. Really? Again, you mean nothing I do changes God? Because I was taught that I had to change God's mind about whether or not I was worthy, there's that word, worthy, and whether or not I was worthy to have a good life. That I had to conform in order to change God. remains perfect. God is ready, able, and willing to do anything for us. Really? You mean I can do something to change me that will align me with what God is ready, able, and willing to give me? But, oh, I knew there had to be a but. Of course. But the Spirit cannot give us what we refuse to accept. This gave me some power. This stood me in good stead that I could do something to be willing to accept the good that seemed to be available all the time. And that nothing that I did changed the way that God doled out good. All right. This is pretty cool. They had me at this. All right, so I was pretty much hooked right away after I attended that first service at Santa Rosa Center for, no, it was Santa Rosa Church of Religious Science at the time. I pretty much just started soaking it up like a sponge, like a little toddler who was just learning everything. I took classes. I attended every Sunday service. I went to workshop. I did everything because this seemed like such a practical and an applicable spirituality to my everyday life. I had not run into that before. This was awesome. And what I noticed is that I began to change. That as I began to use these spiritual principles and apply them through the spiritual practices that I was learning, I began to change. And guess what? So did my life. My life began to change. And the more I was demonstrating my good in life, the more I was doing my meditation and my affirmative prayer and all of the practices that I was learning, the more it validated for me, hey, this stuff works. And when I would fall off the wagon and go back into my old patterns of thinking and feeling and behaving, I would see that things started to change back. And so I would go back in and do my practice. And it wasn't like I was going to be punished because I erred or sinned, missed the mark. I just got back into it. I just realigned. And things were good. This was working for me. This was a practical spirituality and a way of being that I had frankly never encountered before, and I loved it. So as I said, I started taking all these classes. I started doing everything. Before I knew it, I realized that I had actually taken all the classes necessary to go into the practitioner training program. It wasn't really by design. It just kind of happened. I was enjoying it, so I was taking everything I could. And somebody brought it to my attention. Hey, you know, if you want to, you could go into practitioner training. And I thought, wow, do I want to do that? And then I realized that I did have this real deep calling in my heart to help others transform their lives like mine had been transformed. And it was just barely getting better at that point. And so I decided that I want to do that. I want to go into practitioner training. Well, this was in about 1996 or 97. I was a single mother with very little available finances to go into practitioner training, and it was $600. And so I started to go into a spin. Well, I can't do that. I can't afford to take that training. There's no way I can do that. And then I caught myself. And I said, no. That's not where we go with this. And I started going into my practice. I did affirmative prayer, or as Ernest Holmes, our founder, called it, spiritual mind treatment. And I acted as if I lived from the belief that I was already in the practitioner training. I had a feeling of being in the training and moving along my path. And about, I don't know, maybe it was a few days, maybe it was a week. Frankly, it was too long ago to actually remember. My brother called me, Randy. And he said, hey, how would you like to have an extra $600? I said, well, yeah. Well, it turned out he had been on the site. You may have all been on the site before, too. It's the State of California Unclaimed Money site. Have you ever been on there? Well, he found this account. Remember, I'd just gone through a divorce, so I didn't always know all the financial things that were happening. He found an account in my name on that site that had $600 in it. Blew me away. It actually turned out to be a little over $800 because there was interest. So I collected the money and I used that to do my first year of practitioner training. Hello, this stuff works. Well, that certainly got my attention. So let's unpack what happened. What happened when I decided that this was the call of my heart? I had an intention. I had a thought. Well, first I thought I couldn't do it, right? First I was like convinced that this was never going to happen because I did not have a spare $600 laying around. So here's what happens when we go into this place. We have a thought, and it becomes an internal experience. Suddenly I'm there already, not taking the training. And then I have an emotion. I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm limited, I'm living in lack. And that certainly is my experience in form. But then I turned it around. Then I decided, oh, no. I am taking the practitioner training. I will be doing this. I had an internal experience of the call of my heart being fulfilled. I was living in the pleasure and the delight of life, of being a practitioner, serving others. I could feel the emotional vibration of this new way of being, and it lifted me up into a sense of faith, into a sense of being in service and being of love to myself and others. I was already there, and that became my experience. The universal order, God, Spirit, whatever you want to call it, used the complexities of human activity to find a way that I was provided with the finances I need to do what I needed to do. Hello? That's how this stuff works. It's the piece for me that has become the most important is the emotional response, the feeling. It charges up the law. It makes it real. We are at that level of vibration when everything is coming together and everything is happening. So when I first started studying metaphysics, I used to ask some big questions. I don't know, maybe you did too, if you're anything like me. And one of the questions that I would ask is, why body? Why a body? I mean, why does everything have to be in form anyway? I mean, wouldn't it just have been simple if we just stayed in the invisible, unmanifest life? I mean, the body can really be a bother. It seems to me that it's the root of a lot of our challenges. I mean, we gotta groom the darn thing. We gotta feed it. I mean, we have to keep it healthy and exercise it. We have to find shelter for it. I mean, it's really kind of a pain. I mean, really, think about it. Wouldn't it just be easier if we didn't have one? And then the more I learned, the more I realized that form, that creation, that the body, the manifest body of the divine, whatever name you want to give it, is the delight of spirit, is the delight of life. That being in a body brings to us experiences that we would never have if we weren't in form. We might never feel the loving touch of a child or a loved one, or see a beautiful sunset, or experiences the challenges of having a challenge and moving through it because we know who we are. There are so many ways and delights and wonders and mysteries that we receive just by being in a body. And I came to the realization that because it must have a purpose. It must have a purpose behind it. And since I know deep within me that everything is for the purpose of love, that everything moves towards a greater and a greater expression of love. The love of the divine becomes the love of us and each other, and everything that life, having a body, is all about being in love with who we are and everything we see, and being present in a fresh new way every day to the delight of having to groom, feed, provide for this wonderful body temple that we have been gifted with to experience this wonderful life that we are a part of. Ernest Holmes, our founder, has an entire chapter about body in the Science of Mind textbook. And he wrote this: the word body in the Science of Mind means all objective manifestations of the invisible principle of life. He was a wordy guy. What can I say? Well, what he's saying is that everything that is in form, from planets and galaxies and universes to the most tiniest little quark, they are all manifestations of the one life. They are all God. Everything happens within the activity of the divine. The body is distinguished from the idea, well, we'll go over that in a minute, in that the body is seen and the idea is invisible. The physical universe is the body of God, the invisible principle of all life. So in Science of Mind, in New Thought in general, we teach in metaphysics that there is an invisible cause, God, the source of all life, the one life, whatever it is we want to call it, which I say all the time, that there is an idea, a cause for everything that is invisible, physical form, whether it be a situation, an experience, form of life, whatever it is. First it is an idea within universal mind. Then it becomes an idea within our individualized minds, and then it becomes the reality of our lives. Body. Pretty cool. He goes on to say, body is always an effect, never a cause. Body expresses intelligence, its apparent intelligence being lit by the consciousness which permeates it. Again, wordy guy. We would not say that consciousness, oh, I love this. Oh, he really goes in here. You'll like it. We would not say that consciousness is in the body, but rather that body is in consciousness. Everything happens within the activity of the divine. Everything happens within the activity of the one life. We cannot be separate from it. We are individualized expressions of a universal mind that is all about love. So anything that we do in this beautiful body, in this human life, is for the fuller, deeper, juicy expression of the love of the divine. Sometimes that's hard to see. Have you ever noticed that? Sometimes it's difficult to see that we are literally, not just figuratively, living, hearing, feeling, seeing, moving with the activity of the divine flowing through us. Sometimes it's hard to see that. But it's true. And you know, there are so many stories well, I just gave you one, of how it works when we open to the flow of that love. Did you ever hear of Norman Cousins? He was an American journalist. He actually died of cardiac disease in 1990, but he wrote an article that became pretty well known. He had some kind of a connective tissue disorder. Collagen in his connective tissue was breaking down, and he was in a lot of pain, and he became almost paralyzed, almost immobile. He couldn't hardly move, and in 1964, he was hospitalized with this condition. And I don't really know why, but for some reason, he decided that laughter, that humor would raise him up to the level where he was in the vicinity of the wholeness of his being. He didn't use those words, I'm improvising. But that's basically what he did. And so he had, while he was in the hospital, the nurses read to him humorous stories. He watched hours and hours of Candid Camera and the Marx Brothers, and he laughed and laughed. And he wrote, I'm going to find it because it was such a great up on the slide. I don't know why, I just didn't. But I'll find it here in just a second. Sorry about that. Oh, here it is. He said, I made the joyous discovery that 10 minutes of genuine belly laughter had an anesthetic effect and would give me at least 2 hours of pain-free sleep. He eventually cured himself of this disorder with his connective tissue and was mobile again and went on to have a pretty nice career. And as I said, he finally did pass away in 1990, but he was very well known. And this idea has taken hold in the medical community. We know a lot of people that Dr. Joe Dispenza, Linda Rankin, they use the idea that when we raise our vibration, we get there. Heck, the father of New Thought, Phineas Parkhurst Quimby, who we attribute the philosophy of New Thought to, cured himself of tuberculosis. If you've ever taken a roots class in any Center for Spiritual Living, you've heard this story. But what he did is he had tuberculosis, he was having trouble moving, he was very ill, and someone suggested that he get out and ride his horse every day. Well, he was too weak to ride his horse, so he hooked it up to his carriage, and he would go out and ride every day. And when he got back from his ride, he felt so much better. And eventually, he cured himself of tuberculosis. Our mind, what we think, the thoughts that we hold, the internal environment that we create, the emotional response we have to that environment creates our experience in form. It creates our body. Remember, our body is dancing in the consciousness of the divine. Everywhere there is the consciousness of the divine, and we open to it. There was a man named Dr. John Wheeler. He was a theoretical physicist at Princeton University, and he was doing all kinds of experiments with form and the new sciences, quantum physics and what have you, and he said this, I love this. Sorry, folks, but it's no longer valid to see ourselves as mere onlookers. It is one of the deep, happy mysteries that at all times we interact and influence the world we observe. Actually, originally he said disturb, but I said influence because it seemed nicer. But I mean, honestly, we interact and disturb the world we observe. Well, if I am experiencing lack, limitation, disease, or something unwanted in any way, I actually do want to disturb it by creating a new cause. So, let's see. Oh, one of the things that Norman Cousins said was, death is not the greatest loss in life. The greatest loss is what dies inside of us while we live. So whatever is born in us that wants to be expressed, spirit, the universe, whatever you want to call it, lines up to make it happen if we are willing to say yes to it. And I am. How about you? Good. So how do we do this? How do we, in our dailiness, train our brains not to go into worry and despair and rehearse over and over the worst case scenario that could happen? How do we do that? You know what? It's a process of becoming aware. You know, and sometimes that seems like a lot of work to me, to constantly have to be aware of what I'm thinking and feeling and being, oh my goodness, what a bother. But you know what? It's really not. Because if I'm sitting and worrying and spinning and all of the bad possibilities that might happen, I'm not happy. So if I am being aware of how I am feeling, I let my emotions be the navigating direction, whatever I'm trying to say. I let my emotions navigate me to a better way of thinking and feeling and being, then I'm going to be happier in my dailiness, right? So if I'm spinning in something that I don't want to be spinning on, I stop. I just stop. I have a little time out. It doesn't even have to take a minute. It can take 30 seconds. I take a deep breath in. Maybe I take 2 deep breaths in. And right now, my practice changes, but right now I'm using the prayer from the Fear to Faith process from Marcia and Sutton and Lloyd Strong. And we've done that workshop here before, and I printed off some of the sheets if you just want to see the prayer, but the prayer is, I release my belief in lack, limitation, illness, whatever it is that we don't want to be thinking about anymore. I release my need to worry, to fret, to be in debt, to be sick, to be obligated, whatever it is. And I am grateful that I am the freedom, the prosperity, the vitality, the beauty, the wisdom of God, Spirit, the divine. It will take you less than a minute, and it will put you in a whole new way of being. And it will put you in the vicinity of the thing that you are wanting to express in your life. There are so many simple tools that we can employ in our dailiness to put us in a greater vibration, to put us in the sense of laughter and love, to be simply enjoying life and being alive. And that's really what it's all about. The more I love being alive, the more I love being in a body, the more I love expressing and helping and being, the more I see good in my life. So I'm going to let Ernest Holmes have the last word today. This is from Living the Science of Mind, which is easier to read than the Science of Mind text. It's sort of plain language. And this is from the chapter on thought, feelings, and emotions. Holmes writes, here's an interesting thought to speculate on. If feeling and emotion acting through the avenues of consciousness can produce such havoc, I mean, look around, see havoc? What would happen if the same feeling and emotion were constructively employed? Turn it around. What would happen if we convert the energy of fear to faith? The energy of doubt and uncertainty into a feeling of belonging to the universe and being safe in it. Would not the original artist go forth into a new creation through us? Yes, it would. Let's pray. So taking in a nice deep centering breath. I know that all there is the divine. All there is one life, one consciousness, one beauty, one wisdom, one perfection, meaning nothing is missing. One all-pervasive, loving, bold, beautiful, small, strong life. And this life is right where you are. It is sitting in the seat with you. It is all around you. It is everywhere present. It is all that is. It is the very essence and the being that you are in this beautiful human bodysuit. So I speak my word for and about each and every person that is present here in this room and each and every person that is not. I speak my word for our beautiful planet, for our Mother Earth. I speak my word for all life on this planet. I speak my word for our beautiful country, the United States of America, and all of its people, and all people everywhere, all life throughout all universes. I speak my word with power, knowing that the infinite law of God always says yes. I accept a shift in consciousness for all life, that God flows through in a new, fresh, infinite, big, bold way. And that I accept for each and every life on this planet the sense of love, safety, caring that is available to us in every infinite moment of Spirit's givingness. Yes to that. Thank you, God, for this ability to co-create with this all that is power moving through us as our lives. Thank you, God, for the ability to say yes to everything that we want to experience in form for the pleasure of being alive. Thank you, God. So I rest in this, knowing that as I speak these words, they are catching on fire with the law of cause and effect. It has no choice but to act within its nature, to return to us the cause that we set forward. So I just relax in that, knowing all is well. And together we signify our agreement by saying, and so.